Well, joining me now to discuss, GOP strategist, political strategist Alex Zdan and Democratic strategist Nicole Brenner-Schmidt. Thank you for joining us on set here today. We appreciate it. So we've got both sides of the aisle represented here. I'm curious for both of your thoughts on everything that went down. I'll let you decide who wants to start first on this, but just curious, just the reaction to kind of this struggle to get this through in the last 48 hours. And what does this show for the road ahead for President-elect Trump?
Well, Elon Musk has done a great public service here. He's done a public service because he's shown people how the sausage is made in Washington, and the American people don't like the way the sausage has been made. We took a 1,500-page bill that was going to become law if Elon Musk and Donald Trump had not intervened and shrunk it down to 120 pages. Pulled pork out of it, pulled out a congressional pay raise. This is a win for the American people, and Elon Musk and Donald Trump were at the forefront of that.
Nicole, what do you make of Elon Musk getting so involved?
The biggest thing that they wanted was this debt limit, and that wasn't in there. Republicans cannot get their own house in order. We had a negotiated bill. It was bipartisan. Elon tweets, they throw it out, but then they weren't there, and they were hoping Democrats were going to come in and save them again. The Democrats said, nope, that's not what we're going to do. You have to have important stuff in here. And the key is, we saw those bullet points, right? Yes, the farm aid is crucial. Yes, the disaster aid is crucial. And then it says funding the government. But what does that mean? That means that the air traffic controllers are being paid. The letter carriers are being paid. Your military is being paid. The guys fighting the wildfires are being paid. These are important, crucial things for America to keep running, and to have to go through this all again in March is just the sad part. What the Republicans should do is figure out how to have their Appropriations Committee actually pass appropriations bills and have real budgets instead of these last-minute CRs over and over.
Yeah, what does this all say to the American people? Working with Elon Musk, taking until the 11th hour to get this done. Is this what we can expect in the year ahead?
No, yeah. I don't think so. This is the swamp. This is the swamp of Washington and what it does. And I'll also point out that the reason that Donald Trump and Elon Musk intervened, one of the many reasons, is the vacuum and the void of leadership in the White House. Where's President Biden in all this? For good or bad, he's still the president of the United States. He was not involved at all in these negotiations. He was not involved at all in getting together that resolution that could keep the government running, which I assume President Biden still wants to do. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are moving in. Donald Trump is essentially the acting president of the United States of America, and the oath on January 20th is going to make him the true president who can lead America with strength into the next year.
Do you think President Biden should have gotten more involved in
Well, he wasn't involved on Twitter. Well, that's true. But he was in those conversations. And we do have leadership on the Hill in Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and now current Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. And there was a negotiated bill. And once again, Republicans within themselves threw it out. The Biden White House was involved. They just weren't doing it in public on Twitter. And he is the outgoing president. That is real.
So he can check out?
No, he didn't check out. The administration was part of the conversations and was an important part of what the Democrats were doing. He just wasn't doing it on Twitter.
That's what I was going to ask Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday. She said this isn't about playing politics, but they kind of were like, this is on you. We gave you a bipartisan bill. Now you guys have to figure it out. But do you think this is all just playing politics with them kind of standing back and saying, okay, you guys handle it? Do you think they could have come together in a more bipartisan way on this?
They did.
I always kind of throw up my hands when professional politicians say this is not about politics. This is politics. This is American politics. This is negotiation and struggle and strife and disagreement, which is exactly what the founding fathers anticipated for our system of government. This is a healthy thing because when what was going on in Congress was exposed to the scrutiny of the public, Congress changed its course. It's a good thing.
Now, every House Democrat did vote yes on this bill. Do you think House Democrats kind of came to the rescue of Republicans on this?
No, I think that they had what they thought was important in the bill. There were a couple more things they would have liked to have in it, but that's part of politics. It's the negotiation. But the crucial things that we just talked about were in there, and the debt ceiling part was not, which was the part that Elon Musk and Donald Trump threw down and said why they need to toss it out. And then that didn't even end up being in the end. This isn't like this huge victory for them at all in that way. So the House Democrats said, yep, this is important. And we know that 800,000 federal workers need a paycheck, and they need to know that they're getting that through the holidays in particular.
What does this mean for next month, or even in mid-March when they come back and have to do this all again? They have a slim majority in the House with Republicans. You have the input from Elon Musk, and then President-elect Trump, or then will be President Trump in the White House. How are they going to, handle all of this. They have all the power in Washington come January. So what are they going to look at? How are they going to get through these?
Well, when President Trump takes command on January 20th, he will have that united government behind him. He'll have the executive branch and the legislative branches. That's going to be a huge opportunity for him to both drive the discussion and drive the policy. He'll have his people inside the agencies deciding what needs to be cut and what needs to be kept. And when you talk about the debt ceiling is an artificial construct. The debt ceiling was created by Congress as a move to perhaps temper the borrowing tendencies of the government because it spends too much. It's not working. Why not get rid of the debt ceiling? Because any sort of arbitrary barrier that's not working is not worth holding on to at all.
But that was something that Trump did want in there, didn't get in there.
He's correct.
Is that a failure on his part that he wasn't able to get this in there?
No, he was able to get the government working and not in the White House he is right now. So he was able to keep the federal government's lights on, even without taking the oath of office. He can address the debt ceiling come January and March, and I think he will.
What's the best path forward here, would you say, going into January? How do you guys work together? How do you figure out this path?
I mean, look, he's right. They will have control of the legislative and the executive. But what we've seen time and time, and the reason this bill failed is because they couldn't get their own caucus in order. So, yeah, in theory, the Republicans should be able to, he should be able to put things forward and get it through the Senate and the House, but we just haven't seen the Republicans successfully do that. There's about 34 of them in the House that do not come to the table with Mike Johnson most of the time, a lot of the time. But what everyone needs to realize on both sides of the aisle is that there is a slim margin, and that what the American people do in their daily lives is live side by side and raise our kids together in bipartisan communities, and that there is so much that we agree on. It is agreed, and Democrats are coming to the table to say the border is an issue Americans care about. Let's work on something to solve that. We need to talk about how people can afford their groceries, how they can send their kids to school and feel safe about that. Can they work a 40-hour work week and live a middle-class life and take a vacation once a year? These are things that people care about, and they all do. And we need to come to the table and talk about it and figure out those solutions. And there are so many people on both sides of the aisle who are ready and willing to do that. And we need to not let a few extremes in both sides derail that process.
You would say Democrats are still united going into next year?
Yes.
And do you think House Speaker Mike Johnson will still be House Speaker come mid-March, the next time this vote comes up?
It's hard to tell. I mean, look, if you're working with a 2, 3, 4 seat margin, that is difficult for absolutely anybody. I anticipate there might be a challenge to Speaker Johnson, but he has shown that he has the ability to bring a very fractious caucus together. That experience is valuable. I think it'll serve him well, but it remains to be seen what happens on January 3rd.
Okay, last question for both of you. What does this experience show us of what we can expect in the next couple of months? We'll start with you.
Well, I think in the next month we're going to see a lot of the sausage being made in Washington, actually, because people are getting their committee assignments. New members on both sides of the aisle are figuring out where the bathrooms are. They're figuring out what they're supposed to be doing in Congress. But I think with the CR going till March was important because there was a discussion about it only going to January 3rd. And that would have been pure chaos at the beginning. I think we're going to see January, we're going to see members settling in. We're going to see the Republicans rolling out what they believe their legislative agenda to be. They're going to get through inauguration. And then February, leading into March, we might just start seeing all this chaos again. But again, I hope that they can come together and say, we have an appropriations committee. The goal of it is that each of those 12 subcommittees passes a budget, passes an appropriations bill, and that goes to the floor. And we can actually do this in a sustained long-term manner rather than chaos of fixing a few months at a time.
What do you think?
Kelly, Washington has been put on notice. The old ways of doing things are not appropriate anymore. Donald Trump represents change. He's going to get that change. The days of jamming everything into one must-pass bill, those are the days that Donald Trump does not want to return to, and I don't think he will.
A really great conversation. Thank you both for your insight, and we will definitely stay tuned for what's to come in the next couple of weeks and months ahead.
Thank you, Kelly.
We appreciate it. Merry Christmas, happy holidays
Merry
to you guys.
Christmas.